Hey everyone, and welcome to the June edition of the Instructor Community Call. We really appreciate you coming. It's always great to have some folk join us. We've got a good number of people that have joined us in today. Some people that I recognise, some new folk, which is always good as well. So yes, some familiar faces in there. We have an exciting call lined up today. There's a couple of the usual sort of things that we're going to run through, which is just our our normal sort of housekeeping up front to start off with. Our agenda for today, I've got a usual sort of welcome and that sort of thing. We're going to try and get through that as quick as I can because we've got a session that I pre-recorded with Pete the Tender. Which is on a tool that he's actually been developing in conjunction with some of his team and also some of the community as well, about the train and demo deploy. So we're going to try and get to that. So we've got, because we've pre-recorded it, I know how long that is, and then I still want to be able to have time for us to be able to do our trainer recognition at the end. So to that extent, this is us. So that's me on the left. And Peter is on the right, so we'll see Peter shortly as we join into that recording that we've done. And there's no real new updates from the Microsoft world this month. So like just a reminder, as always, with regards to some of the tenants, and in particular the tenants only having that 7-day availability. So when you are looking at planning out your training, if you are doing something that's going multiple weeks, then just bear that in mind that it will, you need to sort of manage that. Okay, so it's kind of the new reality that we live in. So just so work around that as part of your planning process. Okay, all right. So I promised we can kind of get to it as quick as we can. Is our session with Peter. Now, as I said, we did pre-record this. Peter is one of the Microsoft technical trainers. So trying to nail him down at this time of day was kind of hard, simply because he was always training. So therefore, we decided to pre-record so that it would then be we'd then be able to get through it there. All right, so let me flip across to our video that we did, and we'll get that running. Hey, well, thanks, Peter. Thank you for joining us today at the community call. Now, we've already mentioned that this is a recording, so we've had a live introduction to this recordings, but thank you very much for taking some time out of your day to be able to join us. It's really appreciated. Peter, if you want to start off, do you want to introduce yourself, what you do, who you are, that's a little bit of your background? There's probably a lot of folks on the call who do know you. Certainly I've known you for a few years now. So, there'll be some that also don't. So if you want to go ahead and do that.
Sure. Well, so first of all, thanks for inviting me for this. So the starting point, I'm a friend of Kyle out of the MCT community from like years and years back. Originally from Belgium, but moved to the Redmond area about 3 years ago because I joined Microsoft almost 6 years ago as a technical trainer. Before that, I was running my own company for about 10 years as an overall Azure consultant, trainer, cloud architect, working as a subcontractor for Microsoft and a few other partners. And that's what got me into the role at Microsoft as well.
Mm-hmm. And so as part of that sort of that transition, I guess, into Microsoft, what's some of the roles that you've done within Microsoft now leading up to now? Because I think you've had a couple of different things you've done, haven't you?
Well, actually, so I joined again, I would say summer 2019 in the ESI program as the trainer, and obviously still working as the trainer, but also a second side project, and that's what we'll talk about later on. But it was actually my second time. I joined Microsoft initially around 2016, and that was not an official trainer title, but it was actually also an Azure workshop delivery person, I guess,
Yeah.
for GSI partners. So the big IT partners that Microsoft is working with. So always been in like the architecting / trainer space, you could say. Yep.
Yeah. And so as part of that process, like obviously this is what's kind of leading us to where you came in today, was as trainers is what we do. There's lots of demonstrations. There's lots of like the experience you've got to try and pass on to the students in a repeatable fashion as much as possible, and that led to your project, your handy project for the instructors, which is what got you here for today. So do you want to talk us a little bit about the trainer demo deploy?
Sure. So I'd actually have some background there. So like out of my own company, I would say like up till 6 years ago. I mean, as a one-man company working with a few other subcontractors or even partners at some point, there's still only so much you can scale. And like the typical, I would say, training setup was like, I need to prep my demos, but at the same time, I need to have something for learners to play with, where obviously like lab environments like Skillable would definitely be beneficial. But then you still have that concern like, well, there's only so much I can do in the lab environment. So I want to have something that allows me to step away from that. And that's where I picked up like DevOps, where I always thought like, ooh, DevOps, not for me because I'm not a developer, right? But then with the whole automation around it, I managed to bring in like ARM templates, Azure CLI scripts, PowerShell scripts. And I had, I think, like an end-to-end deployment scenario where I could pick a bunch of templates for my Azure classes, the ILT ones out of Microsoft, or a lot of my own custom training. And in the end, I had a DevOps backend environment. We're then moving into the Microsoft role. I mean, it was still training. It was sort of different content, but in the end, we still needed to do demos. And I was like, well, I already have a lot of examples that I could reuse, and then started sharing some of that with other trainers within the team. And then I wanted to shift more to the application side. So I'm like, okay, cool, I'm going to pick up .NET, but what am I going to build? So I came up with the idea, like, what if I manage to build a web front end that allows any trainer to authenticate, to log on to it, and then clicking a button, and that's going to trigger DevOps pipelines in the backend. So that's what I managed to build like in my last few months when I was still in the European team. And then when moving to the US, picked up the same thing. And eventually that platform was live for about 2 years until last year's summer. We had our internal Microsoft SFI initiative, like the Secure Future initiative, where each and every tool that we were using within Microsoft got screened. And obviously, if there were any security challenges with it, then or you needed to fix all the security challenges or the tool got shut down. So unfortunately, the tool that we had got shut down, not because it was not running or because it was bad, but like if you know a bit about DevOps, it means that you need to authenticate. It means it runs in a centralized environment. And a lot of that is just in the way it was set up. Like it was never an official, like Microsoft, I would say team-owned subscription. So it was all running in like the Peter as a trainer Azure subscription, which technically means that I get access to all DevOps pipelines. I had access to all trainer service connections. And technically, I could basically deploy whatever I wanted in any trainer subscription. And then obviously out of that security model, like my pushback was like, well, I do have the permissions, but I'm not going to misuse them. But you all know, like, well, that's the killing point for like anything that you have, right? So from there, I was like, well, I don't want to finish the project. I don't want to kill the tool because, I mean, I was relying on it together with about 60, 70 other trainers at that time. And we needed something new. So the beauty of DevOps to me was always, it helps me in publishing the Azure part using CLI, using ARM, Bicep, maybe even Terraform, but then also bringing in like the application deployment piece of it. So in my search for something easy, approachable, low level that allows me to integrate ARM or Bicep or Terraform, but most of it was Bicep, together with running the application deployment after the Azure resources got deployed. I bumped into Azure Developer, CLI, where I personally think the name developer is the tricky piece in like the tooling.
Yeah.
Because in the end, it's just like Azure CLI, but it just allows you to run a template deployment and bringing in source code. So
right.
If you know a bit about like PowerShell or Azure CLI, then I'm convinced everyone can use Azure Developer CLI as well.
Right. Yeah.
So from there, started looking into the platform. And then there's like a website. It's basically a massive repo in GitHub called Awesome AZD. So that was actually owned by the AZD Azure Developer CLI product team, where they used that GitHub landing page as a marketing tool, almost you could say, or an evangelizing tool. Like, hey, look, this is what AZD can do. And they had about 150 sample templates together with sample apps in that catalog.
Right.
Now, as a trainer, you start with, I need resources. I need a sample app, but I also want to link it to training content. So my first step was, hey, team, you got a cool landing page. Would you mind adding some tags into it related to like Microsoft ILT? Because as a trainer, you could search for like, oh, I need a demo on Key Vault. And obviously they have that in the list. But what if I'm teaching AZ204? What if I'm teaching AI 102? What if basically whatever Microsoft ILT class. So I'm like, hey, I got this list of classes. Would you mind adding it to your scenarios? And you go like, well, it's not really the core of what we do. And we don't really know if we actually want to bring that in. But since our platform is open source, why not cloning it and building it out yourself, adding all the features, all the tags, all the characteristics that you want to bring in? So that was the starting point, where now I would say, and then I guess I'm going to switch to a few demos to actually show how it works. So now the idea is that any trainer, but technically I would say anyone almost, because it still has some trainer specific features into it. But obviously we use it within the trainer team. We got MCTs using it, but then also like Microsoft CSAs. I know a few partners outside of Microsoft using it, all the way to actual customers, where now the benefit is also compared to the old model that the DevOps environment was like our internal MTT Microsoft technical trainer team only, because it was running within the Microsoft environment. Where now it's 100% open source. And even as a trainer, you could now tell your customer like, hey, by the way, all these demo scenarios that I used throughout the day or the week, you can deploy all of them in your own Azure subscriptions, which now actually brings another benefit, I would say, to the project, that it's like continuing the learning cycle. And not just like, oh, it's a cool demo. And I'm pretty sure that, I mean, you as well, when you were still a trainer, right? But like so many deliveries where you go like, oh, trainer, do you have this example in a GitHub repo that I could clone? Where in the past it was always like, well, not really, because it's in a locked down DevOps environment. Where now it's like, oh yeah, sure, go to this link and you can play with it, you can deploy it. And then also everyone can now contribute to it because it's 100% following the Microsoft open source framework.
Well, and I think that's you've hit the nail on the head for a couple of things, right? As a trainer, is that you're looking for something that gives you that ease to be able to answer that question of, hey, can you show me how to do whatever it might be, which might be outside of whatever the direct topic is that's in that particular course anyway. And obviously, it depends on time, etc., as to whether you go, yep, we've got time to do that, or hold on to that, we'll have a look at it afterwards. And then as well as that takeaway, it used to be like when everything was on-prem software, right? It was nice and easy because you'd have the big book and you'd go, here, take this big book, you take that back to your environment and you do exactly the same thing that's in there, then you'll be good. Whereas, like in Azure, there's not that, like that option doesn't really exist as much. And certainly, within the authorized lab host environments, we have scenarios that are built for that particular course But it's when you want to try and step outside of that's when some of the things, and also some of the things that technically aren't possible to run within the tenants that are provided for that course, that might be something that's a good add-on, but it's just technically not possible to run it within those tenants. So the customer or the student has to run it, who would have to do it within their own tenant. So that's where this sort of thing would come in as well. So yeah, great. All right. Now, have you got a something to show us?
Sure. Yeah. You cannot ask a trainer to talk about something without doing a demo, right?
Exactly. I was relating to someone the other day that one of the pieces of feedback I got, which you know when you get feedback from students or presentations, that's the thing. There's some of them that really stick with you. There's one that stuck with me for a number of years now, which is didn't have enough slides or didn't have many slides. And so, well, yeah, I didn't, because there was a very demo heavy presentation. But like 20, well, not 20 years later, 15 years later now, I think that particular piece of evaluation still bites me. It's like, I know.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Good. So I'll start from the basics. There we go. So I'm pretty sure you find some way to emphasize the link outside of the recording, but the easiest one is aka.ms and then /trainer-demo-deploy. And then it's going to translate to this Microsoft Learning GitHub link. And I would say I'm starting with the high level. So the fact that it's part of our official Microsoft Learning GitHub repo means that it's not a Peter project. So over the last couple of months, I've been working on this with internal MTTs, but also MCTs, about 10 on each side, on and off, to contribute with the brainstorming, what are the features we want to integrate, but then also building templates, writing demo guides, testing. So a lot of useful contributions there. But it's part of like the official Microsoft Learning GitHub space, which I mean technically is the same where you go for like the official GitHub lab descriptions, or if you want to test out something else, or I mean a lot of official material in there. So try to follow that same mindset. Like it's official Microsoft content, and next to that, again, we allow the same level of contributions. You can raise incidents. I show you how to do that. You can provide feedback. You can contribute to existing templates. If you go like, oh, it's cool, but I think we can do it better or different, then that's information we're looking for. But also provide feedback on like, hey, I'm teaching some class and looks like you don't have a scenario for it. I think I have a good idea, and then just let us know, and then we can start collaborating on that. So from there, like always, there's a getting started. Like obviously you go through this, it's providing some baseline explanations, like how to use it, pointing also to that, I would say the mother of all this, like the awesome AZD, and then the official AZD docs if you want to do more with Azure Developer CLI, then what you need to actually spin up a deployment, and then the guidelines on how to contribute. Now from the homepage, so I would say some of the highlights, how to actually use it. So the architecture, so the landing page is running in GitHub, so just GitHub pages behind the scenes. But then each and every demo scenario with all the artifacts that we have around it are always running in an individual trainer repo. So we're really trying to step away from that centralized lock-in DevOpsy backend from the past, but also what I call like make the trainer shine. Because if you bring in a scenario where you go like, well, this is my demo setup that I've been using for my classes over the last couple of days or weeks or months, you know that scenario, you bring it in and out, and we want to make you shine for that. So that's where it's like someone who helped a trainer MCT from the Netherlands helped us in migrating from the old platform to the new, and then also bringing in some new scenarios. Well, now you could open the scenario and it's going to directly point to the person on GitHub, and you can literally see the GitHub repo. And that's also later on what you will clone from the GitHub repo into your own machine. Now, before I show you how to do that, a few other things. So right now we have 44 templates. Does it mean we cover all Microsoft ILT? Not yet. So I'm saying not yet, because obviously out of the Microsoft project mindset, we had a few goals and milestones and deadlines. So the first deadline is the end of June, where we need to have 50 templates in there. So you can see right now we got 44. We're pretty close. We got about 3 weeks to go. So I'm confident that we're going to have our 50 templates up and running by the end of June.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a trainer, you go like, okay, for, again, any kind of class from like 900 level all the way to the 305 architecting, DevOpsing, developing, all the AI ones, you could start searching on the service name. So like Azure AI service, I mean, we need to mention AI in every meeting we have nowadays. So that's why you would go like, okay, cool, 8 templates. Where if you would search for like, oh, I want to do something with, I don't know, API Center because it's just on screen here. Like, oh, too bad, there is no demo on this.
Right.
From there, you go like, well, API Center, I want to talk about it in an AZ 204 or in, again, any of these classes that we have. But then again, you might go like, oh, wait a minute, AZ 800, like the hybrid Windows Server / Hyper-V training, you got a scenario for that, but not 801.
Yeah.
Now, this is something we're actually working on because the way it works is based on tags. So each and every scenario that we have, at least for now, we decided to limit the number of tags you can add to it. And it's just a visualization of it where we expect each template scenario to point to obviously at least one Azure service, but typically more, but also one or more ILTs. But as you can see for like 801, there is no tag, but there are actually a few scenarios that would be perfect for 801. So we're just trying to come up with like what works. Because if you talk about like, oh, I need a, I don't know, Azure storage scenario, well, we do have one, but that one could be linked to basically all, I don't know, 24 or 50 ILTs that we have, because in almost every class, we talk about Azure storage, right? So we try to come up with what is the prime scenario that this template is trying to reflect on. That's the main thing. Yeah. And again, we're thinking about optimizing this a little bit more. But at the same time, it still needs to be like useful and clear to see what's going on. Sure. But again, that's going to fix itself in the next coming weeks. So imagine that you're like, I'm going for an Azure 104, where right now out of the 44, we got about 14 templates, somewhat relating to 104 content. Now, the thing is that the demo scenarios, I would say, are standalone demos, which means they're not mapped to the explicit content in a 104 specific module. So just like in a 104, we talk about networking, we talk about virtual machines, we talk about so many other things, right? And we just try to map some potential demo scenarios with the core services that we talk about in that specific class. Yeah. And it's the same for all the other ones. Where now the next step is opening up the scenario. And I'm going to highlight some of the, I would say, trainer-specific benefits, but also if you're not a trainer. So one of the other challenges, if you think about GitHub Quick Start templates that we had since day one in Azure, or any other GitHub repo that you find, first of all, you need to read through like, okay, I deploy it, but what do I actually get? Next to that, you deploy it and it's cool, but it's going to charge you like $100 a day or maybe even an hour. So what we try to do is, first of all, you got the tag, so that's covered. And then we provide a cost estimate where we're using 24 hours as a reference window. Now, why 24 hours? First of all, to give you a meaningful number. Like, what's the point in providing this? Like, oh, the cost of deploying this is like $50 per hour. But that's like, I think, partly meaningless. Why? Because although it allows you to like literally deploy it while teaching, obviously the recommendation would be like deploy it at least once, preferably a few times, to make sure that you know what the scenario is about. Yeah. And next to that, if you teach, then even in a one-day class, you might still have some learner coming back the day after, like, hey, I was in your class yesterday, or if it's a 4 or 5 day class, then you might consider keeping those scenarios running for at least a couple of hours. So a lot of things that as the V team, we agreed that like a 24-hour window is good. And it also means that it's probably more expensive here on screen than what you actually get charged for. Because like the 24 hours, I mean, if you do your day training from like 9 to 5, you spin it up at like 7 in the morning, or maybe even like late evening the day before. After your class is done, you're going to remove it. And in this case, it's going to cost you like $8, right?
Right.
Then the other thing is back to the trainer and how we see the use case for the tool. Like, oh, there's a cool scenario, but it's going to take me, in this case, 35 minutes to deploy. Imagine that, again, you're teaching a class or specific 104 or any other, and somebody's asking like, hey, Peter, can you tell me something about VPN? Where you go like, well, we covered it, but I didn't have a demo. Where now you go like, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to check the trainer demo deploy. Ooh, I got a cool scenario on VPN, but it's still going to take me 35 minutes. Then the immediate response is like, well, hey, learner, we're close to lunchtime. I'm going to deploy my demos during lunch break. And you know that right after lunch, everything will be up and running. On the other side, if a scenario only takes a couple of minutes, then it would be totally fine to tell the learner like, hey, wait a minute, I'm going to walk you through this process. By the way, we got all these demos open source. So you could actually evangelize the usage of the tool for the learner. Or you could just go like, hey, let's do a quick coffee break. You know that it only takes 3 minutes. And right after the break, you got, again, an amazing demo scenario to walk through. The other benefit we try to provide, but this is a bad example, is a demo guide. Why? Because, again, in so many other scenarios, you find something on GitHub or anywhere else where it's amazingly cool and it's a pretty nice scenario, but you deploy it, it has a bunch of Azure resources and there's a sample app or there's containers, but you still need to spend a huge amount of time to find out like, how is this sample scenario related to the content I'm teaching? So what we're trying to do is providing I would say not always super detailed, but at least the bare minimum steps for almost every scenario, as you could see, that describes what's the scenario about, what is getting deployed, and then walking you through the actual potential demo steps. Where it's a suggestion, like, hey, if you go through the deployment, we think that these parts would be useful in this kind of scenario that you're demoing. And that's back to the contribution. Like if you go like, oh, this is a cool scenario, but I think we can show even other things, then let us know, contribute to the scenario on GitHub, raise a PR. The repo owner will go through it, test it out, and then accepting, and you're contributing. So pretty straightforward scenario. It's on the other side, you could also use this as some sort of a learning tool. So that's actually feedback we got from other, again, knowing that the concept of the tool has been around for 3 years, that some trainers, let's say you're a 104 trainer, you want to move up to 305. A lot of the content is identical, but your stories are different, which means the demos are different. Why not going through an already existing scenario? You run the deployment, you go through the scenario, and you follow the demo guide, where now you go like, oh, this is how App Insights works. Oh, this is how event services are working, and again, anything else, depending on the scenario you pick. But now it's not just... No, go ahead.
So that's particularly helpful for say, for instance, the trainers who maybe don't get a chance to actually do this in a practical way as well, because then you can actually see some of the real world application for what you're talking about as part of your presentation, right? So therefore it's going to make your presentation as a trainer much better as well. So,
and then the other scenario, which I think is good to mention, but I would not rely on that. But we've all been in those situations where you get a question from a learner, you want to show something, and now again, I hope that the tool is going to help you with that. But then you're not an expert on this specific scenario. So worst case, if you got the facilities to do so, why not opening up the demo guide, showing it on your second monitor, and then literally trying to go through while you're demoing? It's not the best use case. I mean, it's not why we build it, but again, we've all been in that situation where you deploy something and it's so specific and you go like, well, I know that I can at least walk you through the demos, which I guess might still be better than like, oh, too bad, I cannot even show you.
Yeah.
Cool. So talked about the search option, talked about the services tagging, the ILT tagging, and then how to actually deploy it. So I guess I'm going to use one example, an easy one, a short one, so I can walk you through the full scenario. So we have one where it's deploying Azure Container Instance because it only takes 2 minutes. So I guess we have that time to actually do that. So you already know the baseline is Azure Developer CLI. You go to the Get Started, there's a doc on how to install it and how to run it. And then it's basically step one, AZD init, which means I'm going to grab the content from this repo, like grabbing the artifacts, which again is a template, and for some scenarios, the actual source code. And then the deployment itself is AZD up. So I'm going to open my command line. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to do the ACI Kyle, why not? And then I'm going to grab AZD init. So I'm just going to copy this path, AZD init, connect to this repo from this trainer, and grab the scenario. So it takes a couple of seconds. So in the background, it's running a git clone, and it's going to ask you for an environment name. Now, knowing that the source of AZD is like a developer mindset. So the idea is you have a bunch of templates, you got sample app code, and you want to publish this to dev and test repo 1, dev and test Azure resource group 2, and so on and so on. The templates are using the environment name as the labeling for a resource group name typically, and sometimes also the resources. So I'm going to make it as easy. This is my ACI Kyle demo, and that's pretty much it. So step one is done. So now step two, AZD up. And here it's depending again on the templates. It's grabbing the source code and compiling it. Now the ACI is not the perfect example for this, but if I go back to, let's say the Tollboot scenario, it's a full serverless architecture. In here, it tells you like, hey, before running this scenario, before you're able to deploy it, you need to have some SDKs installed. So in this case, it's a combination of some .NET code, some Node application, and some PowerShell, which means that before actually running the deployment, you need to install the SDK, you need to install the Node app, you might need to install the Docker tooling, and that really depends on the scenario itself. Next, it's going to ask you for your subscription. I'll make it a little bit bigger. So when you deploy or install AZD, it's going to ask you like, hey, what's your Azure subscription? If you have multiple ones, you can specify all that. That's what you find in the docs. So I'm going to grab my Azure subscription, and then it's going to ask me for locations. Again, obviously, it's good old plain bicep. If you try to deploy something like AI, services are a good example. You cannot deploy all of them in all Azure regions. If I pick a region where AI is not supported, it's going to tell me out of bicep, like, hey, too bad, you cannot deploy this. It's not a problem in the template. It's just because the Azure backend does not support it, right? Yeah. Or if, let's say, you're a trainer, you're using your corporate subscriptions from like the learning center, where you have Azure policies in place, where you try to deploy a scenario where we go like, oh, this DS5, I don't know, is a good virtual machine for the template scenario. But you got policies in your subscription blocking you from deploying that DS5, it's not going to work.
Yep.
Now, the nice thing is that all source code, bicep template, and application, if we have one, is now on your local machine. So you could easily, I could actually show you while this is deploying. So inside the process of AZD init, it's now grabbing all the artifacts from GitHub and moving it to my local machine. But now if you go like, oh, I'm going to, before deploying, which by the way, I would recommend, right, is what is this template actually doing? So there's infra, there's the main bicep file. and it's deploying the resource group, some container registry. It's called ACR. Well, I don't like this. I want to call this the ACR PDT. You can make those changes. So it's literally the one click, but it's not click, one command deployment.
Yeah.
But you would still be able to make changes to it. And that's again where we emphasize the contribution part of it. Or what if you want to rewrite the demo guide? If you go like, well, there's a lot of stuff in there, but when I want to use this in my next delivery, I'm not 100% prepared for it. I'm going to show other stuff, then just update the demo guide, and that becomes your demo. So that's again the flexibility you have. So back to the deployment, and I already have this pre-deployed, so I'm not going to wait for the full step. So we picked AZD up, select the subscription, select the location, and then from here, it starts running the deployment. Again, since it's all bicep, it's just traditional bicep. I refresh, and I got this resource group. And inside, if I'm fast enough, I go into deployments, and it's still running.
Yep.
So anything that happens in Azure, you can follow up from here. After the deployment is done, so I had a little, cheat demo scenario here where I already ran through ACI. So after deployment is done, I go in, I got all the artifacts that I need. And then I would say the aha moment in the actual deployment is that you would go into your container, at least in this example, and there should be, there we go, a live web application where now, and that's also what I've heard from trainers, where in a lot of demo scenarios, you literally walk the learner through all the different steps, taking more time. Sometimes you don't always need to go through all those steps, right? And then all the way at the end, they have to wait for like a few minutes, sometimes even more, and then they see something. Well, now you could actually flip it around, and you could start like, look, we talked about Azure containers. This is the sample workload, and then actually doing the reverse engineering as part of your demo. Where you go like, well, to do this, we need .NET code. I can show you the .NET code. We need Docker. I can show you Docker. And then we need the Azure registry. We need the ACI and all the other building blocks. And that's your demo scenario.
Yeah. That's perfect.
What do you think? Do you like it?
That's great. But I think the other reason why it's good is because in order to be able to get, say, for instance, that shop front that you've got there, right? As a trainer, like if you're a trainer who's, like a trainer that's doing training 5 days a week, most weeks of the year. In order to be able to get to the point where you're actually having that demonstration that actually looks like a reasonable outcome, there's a lot of work that goes into that. Like even like ignoring the framework of actually setting up the container and setting up the, laying out the a storefront. It's also the other bits that go along with it, right? So you actually got the bit that actually makes it look like a storefront versus a frame that you could fill in with pictures and that sort of thing later on. So I think that's also of a massive benefit for the trainers, is they've actually got that leg up to be able to show a complete solution when it actually has, without having to do a lot of that heavy lifting to be able to get to that final polish part. And it's that final polish part that becomes, I think, from a learner perspective, the difference between seeing what can be done and what really can be done. What's possible versus what can actually be done. So, or somewhere around that, whichever way around that is. But no, I think it's a great tool. It's a very cool tool for the trainers. And obviously, as you say, you're looking for, well, there's possibility for doing feedback, for improvement, that's the thing, but also contribution as well. So as folk come up with new scenarios, new ideas as part of their own, learning, and that's they can also give you that feedback too, which is I think is a massive benefit for the overall community, as well as obviously contributing to their own training and that sort of thing as well. So
I would say, eventually, right, we met each other out of like the MCT community, and
Sure.
I'm still a big fan of it. And I mean, if you think about like how many Microsoft trainers we have, like internal MTTs and MCTs, even if like 1,000 of them would save 1 hour, even a year or a week or a month, that's brilliant. Because like you said, you spend so much time on thinking about what is a good demo, then you got a great idea, but you still need to build it, right? And then it's that repeatable thing. And all of that, I think, is just what we loved about the tool. And also with the V team, we agreed like once it's like on GitHub, it's no longer just like a bunch of folks within Microsoft who love working on this, but like really getting involvement from the community, and also providing feedback. So knowing, like keeping time in mind, let me close this last part of the demo where you can provide feedback. Obviously, you can directly go into the GitHub repo and create an issue, but obviously there's always a little button for it. So here it allows you to pick like, oh, do I want to report a bug? Like, oh, something is not working, or like that 1404 that I found. So I'm going to report it as a bug that we have a scenario without a demo guide, or the feature request like, hey, thanks for this scenario, but would be cool if you could add this into it, if you could add something else into it on the template or maybe in the sample application itself, or a template request. Something that we started seeing a little bit more lately is like, well, you got about 50 templates, but as you could see, not all of them are covered. Not all Azure or Microsoft ILTs are covered. But I'm pretty sure there's a whole bunch of trainers out there already having amazing demo scenarios. Just bring them in. And that's the whole thing with the contribution, where now you go like, okay, in short, I need to be an expert in Bicep. I need to come up with a scenario. It needs to be a functional demo. Preferably, it comes with a sample app. Well, I'm an expert in Azure, but I don't know any of the other 4 pillars, but that's still fine. You can contribute in providing biceps. You can test deployments. You can write the demo guide, which we all know writing documentation takes a lot of time. And just like bringing all those pieces together, and then eventually it becomes a full demo scenario. That's the whole thing about it.
No, I really like it. I really like it. And
cool.
Thank you very much, Peter, for your for showing us that, and also for all the time you put in to get to this point as well. And I know that, you know, like now it's a community sort of tool, but there's also a lot of work that you put in to get to where it is now. So
it's been a team. It's been a team effort, and again, I cannot emphasize enough. Like, I know that I presented on this at the like MCT summit here in North America, and I'm quite visible. I called myself the like product and program owner for this, but it's not a Peter project. So again, we got internal like about 20 trainers, MTTs and MCTs collaborating, contributing over the last 6 months. By the way, I'm going to open up a new call for applications. So I would say anyone, if you think like, oh, this is so cool, I want to help, I want to contribute. Obviously, you can always do this, but if you want to step in a little bit more active, I'm going to post a new application for like joining the V team, probably early July on MCT Launch, where you can submit your idea like, hey, I think I can contribute for this and this reason. And then if you get selected, which I think is quite certain for everyone who's applying, unless there's like all of a sudden 200 trainers applying for this, then I might need to filter a little bit more. But I would say anyone is more than welcome to contribute in any way. Again, we had MCTs contributing end-to-end for 6 months. We had an MCT joining and sharing like, oh, this is my dream scenario on SQL Server. And eventually we build it just based on the nice scenario description that we got. But it was not the MCT building the templates, not writing the code or anything that relates to it, but just contributing with, this is my go-to scenario. That's contributing. So that's another, I would say, little step that's coming up. And apart from that, Kyle, I would say thanks for the invite. I like the tool because I use it every day. And I know that a lot of other trainers are using it as well. And thanks for giving me the time to talk about it a little bit. Always appreciate it.
No problems at all, and look forward to actually catching up in person at some point in the future. So
we should make that happen again.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, Peter. Cool. Really appreciate it. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Take care for now. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye. All right, so just bear with me while I reshare my screen. We've been working to get Peter on for quite a while, which is the reason why we ended up having to go to a recording because he was a hard person to nail down in the time that we were doing the sessions. But we got there eventually with something. So, and it is a really good tool that, and you can kind of see why it was that we were trying to get him on, because as a trainer, it's something that is very useful tool for us to be able to use and leverage off. So, all right, let's have a look then. And I have posted in some of the contact details for Peter. So that. Details about where the contribution, that's the thing, like when he's opening it up again, you'll see that in his socials as well, so either in LinkedIn or he's on Blue Sky, and I've also linked his blog as well. So hopefully you found that as useful as I did, and as exciting as a trainer as I did when we first started looking at it. Okay, so now we go on to what is my favorite part, as you all know, because every month I say it, right, that this is the bit where we get to promote the folk that have been performing within our community and within our platform, and just pull up a separate screen here. All right, so this is our instructor recognition part. So recent milestones. So since the May call, we've issued 765 badges to 538 instructors. So we've got, so 205 have taught their first class, and no matter what the platform, no matter what the delivery, you all know how nervous that first class was. So so that's a big step, right? We've had 37 who have done 25 classes who delivered, and I'm just looking through our list of who's here. So to see, Carlos had actually responded to say that he was going to be here, but obviously he couldn't make it. We've got 50 classes delivered, so 26 people that have done that. 100 classes delivered. We've got 16 folk that have gone over that, and then we've got Jeff, who has delivered more than 250 classes, so gone over that mark since the last time that we met. So, congratulations to everyone for all your achievements and for being able to have that impact. And when we actually look at what that impact actually looks like, well, that's this, right? The number of students that have been reached. And this is a really important one to me. Like, this is the one where you get to see exactly how many people, or not exactly how many people, but how much impact you've had, right? So this is the number that always surprises me when you look at the number of students that you've had an impact on. And don't belittle, don't minimize how much impact you have on folk that are in your class, right? They come into your class looking for some information. They leave at the end of the week, the end of the day, the end of the 2 days, whatever it might be, right? They leave knowing something that they didn't know at the beginning of that class. That then can become the difference of them getting a promotion. That can be the difference of them being able to be more confident in what they do in their job. And that comes down to you as the trainer to be able to, who's actually done that impact and has promoted that knowledge through to students. So make sure you take that moment as a trainer to go, okay, at the end of this week, there were students that came in and they didn't know something to start off with. They've left knowing more, right? We always kind of focus on, I have a tendency anyway, right, to focus on the downside of things. Oh, there was someone who asked a question, I didn't know what the answer was. That's the thing. But or when you get the feedback, I mentioned it in that, like in the conversation with Peter, there's the odd feedback that you get, and it's always the negative ones that stick in your mind. But make sure you reinforce that with the positive ones, right? With the students who said best session ever, got all the information I needed. I can go and do this, So there's, so walking away with some of that, some more of that confidence, and that's because of the skills and the transfer of knowledge that you've been able to give to your students. So calling out Barbara, who has joined us today. So Barbara, congratulations on reaching over 50 students, 50 students in your classes. A couple of other folk. There's some folk in here that I actually know that I have been around for a while within the community. So 2,000 students. We've had 7 people who have got 3,000 students that they've reached. And again, huge amount of impact that those folk have in our within the classrooms that they've been in, and the knowledge that they've transferred. But amazing, huge achievement for everyone. Whether it's your first student, whether it's your 3,000th student, you are part of our training community. You're part of the community that the wider community of trainers who have that impact on people's lives. So don't, make sure you take that moment to appreciate what it is that you're doing and what it is that you do for your students. All right, so a little bit of a reminder of some of the offers that we have for our instructors. So for the instructors, if you go to skillable.com/offers, you do have access to be able to get to all of our hands-on labs. If you're a Microsoft certified trainer, you can go to there to get access to to apply for access to the mock labs. So you've got access to be able to run those. We also have the MCT All Access Pass, and that's for our challenge labs. So that's the things that are outside of mock. They're the things that that will be on various different topics that aren't just simply Microsoft. If you're a Microsoft trainer, it gives you a chance to be able to widen out your knowledge and look at other topics, as well as maybe wander outside of what's actually contained within the mock content as well. Again, just part of building up your own knowledge. Then we have our AWS instructors. So if you're an AWS instructor, we also have that same offer for the challenge labs as well. So you get access to all of the challenge labs. Again, just put that application through skillable.com/offers. And of course, that then is also part of our instructor recognition, is part of what we do for our instructors. Just with regards to that, with the badging, some folk have said in the past, hey, look, I've got multiple accounts that are with multiple training providers. Can we munch them all together? Absolutely, we certainly can. You just need to let us know, and we'll be able to make those numbers count properly, even though you might have multiple accounts across multiple training service providers. All right, we are running short of time because Peter's session was long, which was good because it was that's fine. It was supposed to. It was good information. But if you do have any information for us or anything like that, please go to make sure you bookmark skillable.com instructor recognition, the dashboard, as well as mock. Kristen's just put her email in there if you do want to reach out to her to be able to put together your accounts. If you do have any feedback, make sure that you send it to us. So go to feedback.skillable.com, and that's where you can go and register any ideas. If there's things that you think we can do better, that we can improve on, that we can make your life as instructors better, then you can certainly go to there to be able to to put some information in if there's things that you want to be able to, so improve on the platform, that sort of thing. Certainly, if you've got feedback around content, we can also take those as well. All right. Well, thank you very much for your attendance this month. I really appreciate it. If you do have any other ideas, about people that you want to have me have a chat with, anything like that, then please also you can let me know about that as well. Reach out to us, and then and I'll have I'll reach out and see if we can get those people in. But apart from that, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it, and thank you for your for being with us this week. Or this month, I should say, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much.